My name is Margaret, and I have learned that some of the most important things we wait for in life do not arrive with fireworks. They arrive quietly, almost like a whisper. Sometimes they arrive so late that you think you must have imagined them. And sometimes when they finally come, they don't change the past, but they soften it, the way warm light can soften the sharp edges of a cold room. For me, it was one word: thank you. Not from a stranger, not from a neighbor, not from a friend, from my son. People often assume that mothers are built for sacrifice, that we give without counting, that we love without asking for anything in return. And it's true in many ways. When my children were small, I didn't think about gratitude. I didn't need it. Their laughter was enough. Their safety was enough. The simple fact that they were alive and growing felt like reward. But as the years passed and as my son grew into a man, something changed between us. Not in an angry way, not with shouting or cruelty, just distance. The kind of distance that forms when people are busy, when they carry their own stress, when they learn to hide their feelings behind responsibility. My son was always a good man. He worked hard, he took care of his family, he did what he believed was right, but he didn't speak his feelings easily. He didn't say soft words, he didn't offer praise, and he certainly didn't say thank you. At first, I didn't notice. When he was young, he needed me so much that gratitude wasn't the language he spoke, dependence was. He would run to me when he was frightened, lean against me when he was tired, cry into my shoulder when the world was too heavy. That closeness felt permanent then. I assumed it would always be that way. But children grow. They pull away. They learn to stand without holding on to you, and that is natural. That is what we raise them to do. Yet no one prepares a mother for the quiet ache that comes when her child stops reaching for her and begins reaching for the rest of the world instead. When my son became a teenager, he became sharper, not cruel, but impatient. He wanted freedom. He wanted to be understood without explaining himself. He started to treat my care like an inconvenience. He didn't say it directly, but I could feel it in the way he rolled his eyes, in the way he sighed when I asked questions, in the way he spoke as if my worries were unnecessary. I told myself it was just a phase. When he became an adult, the impatience turned into silence. He still came around, he still called, but his words stayed practical. He asked about health, about bills, about schedules. Conversations were brief, efficient, and when I tried to tell him about my feelings, about my loneliness, about my memories, he would nod politely, but not enter that space with me. Sometimes I wondered if I had done something wrong, not a dramatic wrong, not the kind of wrong that breaks a family, but maybe the kind of wrong that makes a child grow up believing he doesn't have to say thank you. Maybe I had given too quietly. Maybe I had made everything look easy. Maybe I had loved him so thoroughly that he never realized love was work. I never told him this, of course. Mothers don't want to make their children feel guilty. We swallow feelings like bitter medicine because we believe love should never demand repayment. And I truly believed that. I still do. But believing it doesn't erase the human part of you, the part that wants to be seen. There were moments through the years when the longing was strongest. Holidays, family gatherings, moments when people thanked each other for food, for gifts, for time. My son would eat my cooking, accept my help, leave my house with full hands, and never once pause to acknowledge what it cost me, not in money, in effort, in attention, in care. I would wash dishes afterward and think, it's okay. I would remind myself that he loved me in his own way, that not everyone speaks in soft words, that I shouldn't need thanks. But sometimes, late at night, sitting alone by my window, I would feel a heavy quiet settle in my chest. I would imagine what it might feel like to hear him say it just once, not because I wanted credit, but because I wanted confirmation that he saw me, that he understood what I had carried for him. Years passed like that, quietly, with love present but unspoken. Then came the day that changed something. It was an ordinary day, the kind you don't expect anything from. The sky outside was pale, the light soft. I had been folding laundry at the table, my hands moving slowly, the way they do now. The phone rang, and I glanced at it, expecting a quick, practical call. It was my son. I answered calmly, "Hello, my dear." His voice sounded different, not panicked, not emotional, just softer, like someone who had been thinking. "Mom," he said, "are you home?" "Yes," I replied, "of course." There was a pause. Then he said, "Can I come by?" My heart tightened slightly. "Yes," I said again, "any time." After we ended the call, I sat still for a moment. I didn't know why his tone had unsettled me, but it had. It felt like the air before rain, like something was coming. When he arrived, I opened the door and found him standing there quietly, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly tense. He looked older than I remembered, even though I had seen him recently. Stress does that. Life does that. It marks people gently but firmly. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. He walked into the house the way he always did, but this time he didn't go straight to the living room. He stopped in the hallway and looked around as if he were seeing my home for the first time. Then he turned to me and said, in a voice that was low and careful, "Do you have tea?" I smiled softly. "Always." And as I moved toward the kitchen, I felt something trembling inside me, a sense that this visit was not going to be like the others. And as I filled the kettle and set it on the stove, I listened to the quiet behind me. My son sat at the table without turning on the television, without checking his phone. That alone felt unusual. Usually he moved through visits like they were tasks to be completed. Today he seemed to be waiting. I could feel it in the air, like the room itself was holding its breath. I placed 2 cups on the table, the ones with the small faded flowers on the sides. He watched me do it, his eyes following my hands. For a moment I felt self-conscious. My movements are slower now. My fingers don't grip this firmly. Sometimes the smallest things take concentration. But he didn't look impatient. He looked thoughtful, as if he was noticing details he had never truly noticed before. When I sat down, he didn't speak right away. He wrapped his hands around the cup of tea as if he needed the warmth. I waited. I have learned in life that silence can be generous if you let it be. You don't have to fill every pause. Some pauses are where truth gathers courage. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Mom?" he said, and his voice sounded strange, not weak, but careful. "I've been thinking about you." I blinked slowly. "About me?" I repeated, surprised. He nodded. His gaze dropped to the table, and for a moment I saw something that looked almost like shame. "Yes," he said, "about everything." I didn't know what to say. A part of me was afraid to hope for something. Another part of me had been waiting so long that it felt dangerous to even lean toward possibility. So I simply nodded and encouraged him with my eyes. He took a slow breath, like someone preparing to lift something heavy. "I didn't realize," he said quietly, "how much you did. For me, for all of us." My heart tightened so suddenly I thought it might stop. The words were not yet what I had waited for, but they were close enough that I felt years inside me stir awake. "I did what mothers do," I said softly, because old habits don't disappear easily. "It was my job." He shook his head. No, he said, a little firmer. It wasn't just normal. He swallowed. I've been remembering things, like how you stayed up with me when I was sick, how you worked and still made sure the house felt warm, how you never made me feel like I was too much. My eyes filled before I could stop them. Because those are the things mothers hold quietly, the nights, the worries, the exhaustion you hide behind a steady face. And hearing him name them felt like someone finally turning on a light in a room I had sat in for years. He looked up at me then, and his eyes were wet too, though he tried to hide it. He said, I think I took it for granted. I didn't mean to, life gets loud, and I got busy, and I became the kind of person who thinks practical things matter more than feelings. I wanted to reach across the table and hold his hand, but I didn't. I simply sat still and let him speak, because I had waited decades for him to enter this quiet space with me. He continued, voice low. Last week, he said, I was cleaning out a box of old things, and I found something. He hesitated. A school project from when I was little. I smiled through tears. Oh, I whispered, you used to make those messy posters. He gave a small laugh. Yes, he said, and you always acted like they were masterpieces. His laugh faded into softness. I remember you hanging them up, even the ugly ones, even the ones that were falling apart. You made me feel proud. My throat hurt now, not from sadness, but from relief, because motherhood is full of invisible labor, and invisible labor becomes loneliness if it is never seen. He took another breath, and it hit me, he said, that I never thanked you, not really. The room went so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. My hands trembled slightly as they rested on the edge of my cup. My heart was pounding in my ears. I wanted to pretend it didn't matter. I wanted to protect him from the weight of what he was about to say. But I also wanted to be honest. I wanted to receive what I had waited for like a gift instead of brushing it away like I didn't deserve it. He looked directly at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the child he used to be hiding behind the man he had become. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. Mom, he said, thank you. It was only 2 words, but it felt like an entire lifetime. My breath left me in a quiet rush. I pressed my lips together, trying not to cry too hard. My eyes blurred. I had imagined this moment so many times in silent corners of my life, and now that it was real, it felt almost too tender to hold. He continued quickly, as if he might lose the courage. Thank you for loving me the way you did, for staying, for giving, for not giving up on me when I wasn't easy. Tears fell then, quiet tears, not dramatic, just honest. I placed my hand over my heart because it felt too full. I nodded slowly, and my voice, when it finally came, was soft and shaky. My dear, I never needed you to be easy. I only needed you to be safe. His shoulders shook slightly, and he wiped his eyes like he was embarrassed. But I wasn't embarrassed. I felt peaceful, like something had finally been set down. He reached across the table then and took my hand. His grip was warm, steady, and in that touch I felt all the years fold into this moment. The boy I raised, the man before me, the love that had always been there, but had finally found words. And as I held his hand, I realized that love can survive many kinds of silence. It can survive distance. It can survive years of unspoken feelings. But even the strongest love needs to be seen sometimes. It needs a gentle acknowledgement, a small moment of recognition, so that the heart that has been giving for so long can finally rest. We stayed like that for a while, hand in hand, letting the quiet speak in ways words never could. I watched my son's face as he looked down at our joined hands. He seemed to be carrying a mix of emotions: regret, tenderness, relief. I could tell he was trying to understand himself as much as he was trying to reach me. Sometimes people don't realize what they feel until they finally say it out loud. "I don't know why it took me so long," he whispered. I squeezed his hand gently. "Life moves fast," I said softly, "and sometimes feelings move slow." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I didn't want to be like this," he admitted. "Cold, distant." He looked up at me. "But I think I learned to hide my feelings because I thought that was strength." His words touched something deep in me. I had seen that mistake in many people. Strength is often mistaken for hardness, for silence, for pretending nothing hurts. But real strength has softness in it. Real strength is the courage to be vulnerable, even for a moment. "I used to think that too," I said quietly. "When I was young, I thought being strong meant never crying, never asking for help. But now I know strength is honesty." My son let out a shaky breath, as if those words loosened something inside him. He looked around my kitchen as if he was seeing it through a different lens. The table, the kettle, the familiar chair by the window. I could see memories surfacing behind his eyes. The kind of memories you don't think about until you return to the place where they were born. "I remember this kitchen," he said softly. "I remember coming home from school and smelling dinner." He paused. "And you always knew when something was wrong, even when I tried to act fine." I smiled faintly. "A mother knows," I said, "even when she pretends she doesn't." He laughed quietly, then grew serious again. "I don't know why it took me so long to say thank you," he whispered. I squeezed his hand gently. "Life moves fast," I said softly, "and sometimes feelings move slow." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I didn't want to be like this," he admitted. "Cold, distant." He looked up at me. "But I think I learned to hide my feelings because I thought that was strength." His words touched something deep in me. I had seen that mistake in many people. Strength is often mistaken for hardness, for silence, for pretending nothing hurts. But real strength has softness in it. Real strength is the courage to be vulnerable, even for a moment. "I used to think that too," I said quietly. "When I was young, I thought being strong meant never crying, never asking for help. But now I know strength is honesty." My son let out a shaky breath, as if those words loosened something inside him. He looked around my kitchen as if he was seeing it through a different lens. The table, the kettle, the familiar chair by the window. I could see memories surfacing behind his eyes. The kind of memories you don't think about until you return to the place where they were born. "I remember this kitchen," he said softly. "I remember coming home from school and smelling dinner." He paused. "And you always knew when something was wrong, even when I tried to act fine." I smiled faintly. "A mother knows," I said, "even when she pretends she doesn't." He laughed quietly, then grew serious again. "I think I was afraid to say thank you," he admitted, "because then I would have to admit how much you gave, and I didn't want to feel guilty." I understood that more than he knew. Sometimes children avoid gratitude not because they don't feel it, but because gratitude makes the debt visible. And nobody likes to feel indebted to the person who loves them most. It can feel overwhelming. But love isn't a bill to be repaid. It's a thread that connects us. "I never wanted you to feel guilty," I told him gently. I wanted you to feel loved." His eyes filled again. "I do," he whispered. "I do feel loved." He squeezed my hand. "And I'm sorry I didn't say it." There was a time when I might have responded with polite denial. "Oh, don't be silly. It doesn't matter." Mothers say that to protect their children. But this time I chose honesty. Soft honesty, but real. "It mattered," I said quietly. He blinked, as if those 2 words surprised him more than anything else. "It mattered because I'm human, and humans need to be seen, even mothers." My son let out a shaky breath, as if those words loosened something inside him. He nodded slowly, tears sliding down his cheek without him wiping them away this time. "Thank you," he said again, and this second thank you felt different. The first had been bravery. This one was love. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Not just about practical things, not just about updates. We talked like 2 people who belonged to each other. We talked about the past, about the hard years, about the good years, about small memories that made us laugh. He told me about the pressures he carried, the fear of failing, the way responsibility had hardened him without him noticing. I listened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like he was letting me in. As evening approached, the light outside began to turn golden. The room softened. Shadows stretched gently across the floor. My son stood to leave, but before he walked out, he hesitated in the hallway. He turned back and looked at me. "Mom," he said, voice steady now, "I'm going to do better." I nodded. "You already are," I said softly. He stepped closer and hugged me. Not a quick, polite hug, but a real one. I closed my eyes and let it happen. His arms felt strong, but his heart felt open. And as I held him, I understood something I wish every mother could hear. Sometimes the love you give does come back to you. Not always in the way you expect, not always quickly, but sometimes it returns in the smallest, most precious form. A word, a hug, a moment of honesty. After he left, I returned to my chair by the window with my tea. The sky outside was warm with sunset, and the light wrapped around my hands like comfort. I listened to the quiet of my home, but it no longer felt heavy. It felt peaceful, as if the house itself had exhaled. I thought about that one word, thank you, and how it carried an entire lifetime inside it. It didn't erase the years of silence. It didn't rewrite history, but it softened something old inside me. It healed a small hidden ache I had carried without ever admitting it. And if you are listening to my story right now, I want you to remember this. It is never too late to say the words that matter. Appreciation should not wait until funerals. Love should not wait until regret. A simple thank you can be a bridge. It can turn distance into connection. It can make someone feel seen. That evening, as the last of the sunlight faded, I smiled softly by the window and whispered into the quiet, not to anyone in particular, but to life itself. Thank you. And for the first time in a long time, my heart felt completely at rest.